Hey guys, it's Power 5 Fanatics back at you heading into,
Week 14.
yeah, probably the biggest college football weekend, I guess.
Rivalry week.
Of course, the conference playoff or the conference championship games will be the next week,
Yeah.
which is pretty big too. But I don't know, I kind of like this, the rivalry week with Thanksgiving and all that. So, anyways, we're going to do, instead of a top 25, which we've been doing all year, we're going to condense it down to a top 10. Um, and the reasoning is not that fans don't care about what number 23 team is doing this week, but I think overall most people care about where they're positioned going into the playoffs and who's going to be the top four teams. So we're going to condense it down a little bit and talk about the teams that are really going to matter. Starting off, our number one team hasn't changed in a long time.
Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, they beat Penn State 28-17. They had one of their first, probably, I guess, would be their biggest challenge they've had all year. They've beat every other team this year by 24-plus points, and they won this one by 11. So definitely it was their biggest challenge, but they were up to the task, and having Chase Young back helped. I don't know how much what his stats were, but I heard he played really good in that game, and he may be the best defensive player they've ever had. I don't know. And they've had some great ones. I mean, they've had the Bosa's.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. The talk I've heard about this guy, like people are expecting like really big things from him at the next level. He may be the best defender
I heard they've
ever had.
He might be one of the highest graded defensive players to like draft grade that has ever like at least as long as they've been kind of tracking some of these like like PFF, like Pro Football Focus, they kind of track like weekly grades and stuff like that. And Chase Young is like 97, overall or whatever. Yeah. And they were kind of acting like in the 8 years that they've been doing that, he's the highest rated defensive player that they've ever, scouted or whatever. So he's very incredible.
He's definitely a difference maker. Outside of the quarterback position, there's not a whole lot of positions where you can make an impact, and defensive end is one of them.
Yeah.
And anyways, he's great, and he's helping them out. He may be the reason they win the national title. Two, we got LSU.
Yeah.
And we had a debate whether to put Clemson at 2 or keep LSU, and we decided to stay with the team that at least played this last weekend. Clemson being off, of course. LSU beat Arkansas 56-20. Not just not just eyeball popping score by any means, because Arkansas is just they're the worst team in the SEC.
Yeah.
So, but they did win, and that's what's important. And they won by 36 points. So I don't know what constitutes a great win or not. But anyway, we went with the team that played, but we really have a hard time, deciding which team is actually better, either LSU or Clemson. And I'll be honest, on a neutral field, I think it's just a coin flip. I think it's a pick 'em. These teams, these top three teams are the ones that are just head and shoulders above everybody else, offensively, defensively, and you could easily say Clemson's the number 2 team. 4, there's going to be a little controversy. Sorry, I'm going to change this here. I was skipping lines, but I'm running out of lines here. We got Alabama, and I don't know what the college football playoff is going to have tonight when it comes out. My guess, they're probably going to keep Alabama at 5 and keep Georgia at 4, because Georgia did win against A&M. But I don't know. At this point, I'm thinking, Alabama, I know they just played Western Carolina, but they won 66-3. And just in my opinion, they're better than Georgia is right now.
Yeah, it's hard to say because they didn't play anyone with Mac Jones. And I would like to see them, have a little more competition when they, this coming week when they play Auburn. I'm going to be watching that game because first of all, I'm excited about it just because I'm a college football fan, but also, I just want to see how Mac Jones is able to play against some elite defenses, because Auburn certainly has one of those.
And Alabama, if they are going to end up in the top 4, I think they're still going to have some help because they don't have the 13th game.
Yeah.
I think they're just going to have to wreck Auburn this week. I mean, beat them by 2 or 3 touchdowns, and then they're still going to have a little bit of shakeup probably to get into that final spot. But just going off who we think should be the fourth best team, we think it's Alabama at this point. We do have Georgia at 5, of course.
Yeah.
And
this is pretty close here too.
It is.
I mean, these next 2 are pretty close. We picked Alabama above Georgia because
you're splitting hairs, but Georgia's just their offense has been in a funk, and I don't know if they're going to get out.
I don't know if it's a funk. I kind of just don't think.
I don't know if they got the playmakers.
Offense.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't really have a game-changing receiver. I mean, they have some guys kind of playing good like Pickens and. Lawrence Cager is pretty good too, but they lost their only returning starting receiver to misdemeanor during the off season. So they're kind of missing a playmaker. Of course, they have Swift. But
they remind me of the New England Patriots. They're going to grind you to a 19-13 win like they did with A&M. But I think long term, that's not what's going to win a national title, and that's why we got them at 5.
And if they make the playoff, I mean, they got an elite defense. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know if it's any more elite.
That was my analogy with the Patriots. At some point, that eliteness on one side of the ball comes back.
Well, and even like I was saying though, is I don't know if they would even have one of the more elite teams in the playoff defenses.
I
playoffs.
agree. Yeah.
So, you look at Ohio State and Clemson. I think that their defenses are at least as good as Georgia's, but I do think that their offenses are pretty significantly better.
I'd say
than
they're
Georgia's.
probably a little better, maybe.
So that's kind of the issue right now. Is I need to, this late in the season, it's a little late. Plus, they have the loss to. I know the playoff committee doesn't try to look at this too much, but they have a loss to South Carolina.
Yeah, that was a doozy.
Which they just
to lose at home to South Carolina at this point. Anyway, that's why we got them at 5, guys. Y'all, some people are going to disagree with that. 6, we got Utah.
We don't like doing it. We're just as much as anyone else. I mean, Alabama's been in the playoffs every single year. It's
but
it is what it is.
I know, we're kind of just.
Yeah, we're trying to be realistic here. And,
So. We got Utah, and they every bit deserve to be in the 6th spot. And, I mean, I think everything's just lined up right in front of them. Their defense has been elite this entire year. Of course, they beat Arizona. Not the greatest opponent, but they did win on the road 35-17. And, they went out, they're in. I don't see how in the world they're not at this point. Their one loss is to USC, which is looking better all the time. Of course, USC, they beat UCLA this weekend.
Yeah, they beat them pretty handily.
Yeah, so USC's actually a pretty good squad right now. Everybody likes beating on them, but they're pretty good. But anyways, if they went out, I don't even think it matters what the score is right now. If they beat Oregon by 1 point in the Pac-12 championship, I think they're in. I don't think there's any other way around it. I think they're going to have to be in. And of course, that being said, obviously Alabama and some of these other teams like Georgia. I'm sorry, not Georgia, but Oklahoma and some of these other teams, Baylor. That's what they want Utah losing, obviously, because they need a little chaos.
Yeah.
Speaking of Oklahoma, we got them at 7, and they do need some help. They need to beat Baylor in the Big 12 championship, and I think they need to beat them bad.
Yeah.
They're just. Ever since the Kansas State game, I don't know what happened to their defense, but everybody decided to check out on the rest of the season.
They played a little bit better this past weekend.
Yeah.
But their offense in that game kind of struggled.
Yeah.
I think it was like 28-24.
Yeah, it was 28-24 against TCU. They played them in Norman, but it's just they need a little flashiness going on Oklahoma just to change some perceptions at this point, I think, and to get some of the votes they need. So they need some help, and I think they also need it's a beauty pageant with Oklahoma.
Beating Baylor twice would be pretty good.
Yeah, it would be good.
That would maybe be enough.
I think honestly, I think they need to beat them though pretty good, like not by 2 or 3 points, like actually beat them by 10 or 15 points or more, just because I think they're in the beauty pageant part of the top 10. That's what we're getting into here, where you need some help. You need to change public perception about you,
Right.
8, Minnesota.
Yeah.
The good thing about Minnesota is if they do end up in the Big Ten championship against Ohio State and they're somehow able to win that game, I think they're in. See, what they have different from Oklahoma. They're playing Ohio State. They're not playing Baylor. They're playing Ohio State. If they beat Ohio State, I think they're in.
Well, yeah, because I mean, not only are they beating a fantastic team, they're also beating a team that they need to jump to get into the playoff. Because like Oklahoma, Baylor's behind them right now, so they're not really shuffling that top 4 up at all. Minnesota has an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I think they control their destiny. That's easier said than done.
Well, yeah,
because they have to beat. They play Wisconsin this week, right? Mm-hmm. And then they have to somehow find a way to beat Ohio State, which, like I said,
I mean that's a gauntlet. The next 2 weeks are a gauntlet, but as far as on paper goes,
they control their
gauntlet.
destiny.
So they if they win those games, they deserve to be in the playoffs.
Exactly.
I mean that's the other coin of looking at that.
That's why we got them in the top 10. Baylor, we moved them way up. And part of the reason, of course, they beat UT Texas pretty handedly, 24-10, and it was. I don't think it was really close most of the game. They kind of got a lead on them, and their defense is definitely. They settled that issue. If anybody else thought, whether it was TCU or Kansas State or anybody else thought their defense was better, they're wrong. Baylor's got the best defense in the Big 12.
Yeah,
and statistically, they're ranked that way, but I mean, the eye test showed it too in that game because Texas isn't mincemeat on offense, and they really just kind of slowed them down.
Yeah, and we don't have high expectations for Texas. As far as like who they are as a team, they're not that great on defense, and then lately they haven't been that good on offense either. I know they had to play Baylor, but Baylor, this is the kind of performance I think we needed to see for Baylor. We thought they were a good team, and they really opened our eyes in that Oklahoma game, the way that they kind of, punched Oklahoma in the mouth.
Really but I do agree. This is one where it's like, this kind of makes it where you're convinced. You're like, okay, these guys really are pretty darn good.
From the beginning of the game to the end of the game, this game was never in question. Yeah. They absolutely dominated the team that they played.
And they haven't done that this year.
And to be honest with you, I mean, Texas is probably the most talented team in the Big 12, and they were able to do that. So, really just physically dominate them. So I thought that was impressive. I know Texas isn't super good, but
going back to the Oklahoma-Minnesota quandary of getting into the top 4. They're with Oklahoma, not with Minnesota, because they're playing Oklahoma. Even though Oklahoma's going to be in front of them when the college football playoff ranking comes out, but they're just further back, I think. I don't know of course, this is what we got. I don't know what the ranking's going to be tonight. I'm assuming it's going to be pretty close to this, but I think they're going to have they need some style points against Oklahoma, and then they're probably going to have a little bit of help maybe somewhere in front of them.
The biggest issue is, obviously for Baylor, they've only lost to a top 10 team. That's not bad. The problem is they haven't played anyone like their non-conference was really just
probably the worst.
It was really bad.
Yeah, really bad. Alabama's is pretty bad too, but theirs was bad.
But at least Alabama played Duke,
And Alabama also started the season in the top 4, so it's easier to stay in the top 4.
It's easier to kind of bounce back. Oklahoma, it's hard to say who has a better resume right now, Oklahoma or Baylor. Oklahoma beat Baylor, but they also lost to Kansas State. Baylor doesn't have that type of loss, so who knows? But they haven't.
Oklahoma does have a better non-conference though than
they played
Baylor.
UCLA and Houston, which is better
in
competition.
LA,
I know Houston's not very good this year.
Yeah. But they weren't playing a directional school is what I'm trying to say, and because UCLA, I mean that's that's
respectable.
That's respectable.
Very respectable. I know right now they're down, and that's not Oklahoma's fault.
No,
they scheduled at UCLA knowing that UCLA is UCLA.
Yeah,
and they just weren't good right now. So
that's kind of where it ends because 10th we got Michigan, and Michigan, for all intents and purposes, does not have a chance to get into the playoff. But we got them at 10 because we think they are definitely the 10th best team in the nation. They started the season slow. They were in an offensive speaking about offensive funks, they were in one.
Oh, yeah.
Defense has been solid all year, but the second half of the season, pretty much after the Wisconsin, or no, do they play Penn State or Wisconsin first?
They played Wisconsin first.
Yeah, so after the Penn State loss, a few weeks later. Yeah, after the Penn State loss, they've turned it on.
I'll be honest with you, I thought in that Penn State game they turned it on.
The second half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
that's when it
were
changed.
Too far behind in that game to come back, but they really the offense kind of got rolling there, and that showed me a lot that week because they could have easily given up on the season going into that game because they had already. Especially being down, at halftime to Penn State, and your season's basically over.
Yeah, it was like, what was it, 28-3 or something, then they almost came back in the second half.
Or 21-3.
But ever since then, it's been smooth sailing. I mean, their offense is scoring points. Their defense is still dominating the way. I mean, right now, if you just want to say, just take the eye test, I think they're in the top 5 or 6 teams right now. But they've got 2 losses, so they're not going to be.
And one was really ugly.
Yeah. But I'm just saying the way they're playing right now, hey, I'd have a hard time arguing that Georgia or Utah, either one's better than Michigan right now. But it doesn't matter. They've got 2 losses. But we do have them at the 10th spot because we think they deserve it. Will you guys let us know what you think? This is our top 10, and we'll see what the playoff ranking says tonight and see how it compares. Let us know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Hit the notification bell because we're going to have some great videos coming out. And
let us know, too. I mean, do you like just doing the top 10 or do you want us to do top 25? It's up to you guys. We're trying to make the videos a little bit shorter because we don't know if, is it hard for you guys to watch a 30-minute video? We don't know.
Right,
so we want y'all's, we want y'all's feedback here. Let us know what y'all think about the videos, and we'll go from there. So thanks, guys.
Thanks for watching.